imagine the shock when Michael Luciano, the CEO of his own successful restaurant, walks into Luciano's bistro Undercover, only to overhear two boys blaming him for their mother's ruined life. For years, Michael had built his empire with passion and dedication, but now he's confronted with a past he never saw coming. What happened between him and their mother, and what secrets are hidden beneath the surface of his success? This is more than just a story about a restaurant. It's a tale of redemption, secrets, and a man who must confront the choices that changed everything. Watch to find out how it all unravels. Can you imagine the shock? Michael Luciano, the big shot CEO, slipping into his own restaurant, Luciano's Bistro, like a ghost, only to freeze when he overhears two boys whispering behind him. He adored this place. It was the shining star of his career, where every dish spun a tale and every meal felt like a grand celebration. But lately, something was off. The online reviews were stellar, sales were rock solid, and the staff seemed happy enough. Yet deep in his gut, Michael felt a gnawing disconnect, like he'd lost touch with the soul of his business. What was going wrong? So he did what he always did when he felt adrift. He went undercover, not as a waiter or a cook this time, but as an ordinary Joe, just another face in the crowd, dressed in a plain hoodie, faded jeans, and a baseball cap tugged low to shield his face. He stepped into Luciano's Bistro on a dreary, rain-soaked Tuesday evening. The staff didn't even blink, just another customer caught in the dinner rush. He slid into a booth, tucked near the back, his sharp eyes darting around the room. The place was electric. Servers zipped between tables, balancing plates of steaming, fragrant pasta and clinking trays of drink. Couples leaned close, their faces glowing in the flicker of candlelight, while families roared with laughter, passing around gooey bites of dessert. Michael couldn't help but smile. His bistro was alive, pulsing with energy. A perky waitress bounced over, her smile polished but warm. "Good evening. Can I get you started with a drink?" she chirped. "Just water," Michael mumbled, keeping his tone low and casual. No way was he risking recognition. Not yet. "Oh, and give me a minute to check the menu," he added. She nodded, flashing another grin, and scurried off. Michael flipped open the menu he could recite in his sleep, but his mind wasn't on the food. He was tuned into the hum of voices around him. This was his shot to hear the raw, unfiltered truth, to see his restaurant through the eyes of the people who kept it alive, his customer. He was just starting to ease into the moment when, bam, voices from the booth behind him snapped him to attention. Two boys, their whispers sharp and secretive, like they were plotting something big. "Do you think we'll even see him?" One boy hissed, his voice high and jittery, like he wasn't used to sneaking around. "I don't know," the other shot back, his tone biting. "But Mom swore this is the spot. She said, he's here all the time." Michael's ears pricked up. Who the heck were they talking about? He kept his head down, pretending to pore over the menu, but every fiber of his being was locked on those boys. "What if we get caught?" The first boy squeaked, his nerves practically vibrating. "We're not even supposed to be here. We won't get caught." The second one snapped, all confidence. "We just need to figure out who he is." Michael's brow furrowed. Who could they be hunting for? His first thought was to brush it off. Maybe they were just kids chasing some local hotshot, but there was a raw urgency in their voices that twisted his stomach. "Mom said it's his fault. Everything fell apart." The second boy went on, his words dripping with venom. "She said if it wasn't for him, our lives wouldn't be such a mess." Michael froze, his heart slamming against his ribs. His fault. He forced himself to stay still, but his hands clamped onto the menu so tight his knuckles whitened. Those words hit too close to home. Too sharp, too personal. Who were they blaming? The waitress swung back with his water, jarring him out of his spiral. "Ready to order?" she asked, all sunshine and smiles. Michael blinked, barely glancing at the menu he wasn't even reading. Just the house special," he stammered. "Awesome choice," she said, scribbling it down before vanishing into the chaos. The second she was gone, Michael tilted his head ever so slightly, straining to catch more of the boy's hushed talk without looking like a creep. "Mom said he wrecked her life," the second boy muttered, his voice low and bitter. He stole everything from her. Do you think he'd even care? The first boy whispered, almost pleading, like if we told him. I don't know, the second one growled, his tone hard as steel. But I want to see him. I want to look into the eyes of the guy who took it all away. Michael's stomach churned like he'd been punched. Those words weren't just idle chatter. They were a knife to the gut. These boys weren't talking about some random nobody. They were talking about someone they held responsible for their mom's pain. And the way they spoke, with such searing resentment, sent a shiver racing down his spine. Could they mean him? It didn't add up. Michael prided himself on running a tight ship with integrity. Sure, he'd made tough calls over the years, letting go of slackers, driving hard bargains with suppliers, but nothing that could spark this kind of hatred. Or could it? Their voices dipped lower, maddeningly hard to hear. Frustration surged through Mike. He couldn't just sit there, stewing in the dark. He had to know what they were talking about. But how? Confronting them head-on felt like a minefield. If they were talking about him, blowing his cover could light a fuse. But staying silent, that might mean never getting answered. He took a deep breath, stealing a glance at the booth behind him. The boys were young, maybe 13 or 14. One with a wild mop of curly hair spilling out from his hoodie, the other hiding under a baseball cap pulled low. They looked jittery, their eyes darting around like they expected to be tossed out any second. Michael's mind was a whirlwind. Should he flag down the waitress and ask about them, follow them when they left, or just turn around and demand to know who they were after? Before he could settle on a plan, the boy in the hoodie leaned in closer to his friend. We just need to wait a bit longer, he said, his voice steady with purpose. If he's here, we'll know. Mom said he wouldn't hide. Michael's breath hitched. Wouldn't hide. That felt like a direct challenge, a slap across the face. He suddenly felt naked, like his flimsy disguise was no match for their piercing certainty. What had he done to their mother? And why were they so dead set that he was their guy? Michael didn't have the answers, not yet. But one thing was crystal clear. His quiet little undercover visit had spiraled into something far heavier, and there was no turning back now. His pulse raced like a runaway train. This wasn't just about eavesdropping anymore. It was personal, and he needed the truth. The boy's words clawed at him, each one sharper than the last. Mom said he ruined her life, took everything from her. Who was their mother? What tied her to him? Enough was enough. He couldn't just sit there, drowning in question. Michael adjusted his cap with a subtle tug, stood up and sauntered toward the counter near the kitchen, playing it cool. From there, he could keep an eye on the boys without raising suspicion. While waiting for his food, he waved over the waitress who'd served him. "Hey," he said, keeping his voice light as air. "Those two kids in the back, do they come around a lot?" She glanced over her shoulder, then shook her head. "Nah, first time I've seen them." "Why? They stirring up trouble?" No, nothing like that," Michael said quickly, flashing a reassuring smile. "Just curious, that's all." She shrugged, unbothered, and walked off, leaving him alone with his racing thought. Those boys didn't look like delinquents, but their whispers screamed purpose. They were here for someone, and Michael's gut screamed it was him. Back at his booth, he settled in, his focus laser-locked on their low, intense chat. "I just want to know why," the boy in the hoodie said, his voice thick with frustration. "Why he did it. Mom never gives us the whole story." The boy in the cap hesitated, his voice softer, unsure. "What if we're wrong? What if it's not him? It's him?" The first boy insisted, fierce and certain. "Mom showed me his picture. It's definitely him." Michael's breath caught in his throat. They had his picture. His chest tightened, memories from years past flickering like a faulty film reel. Faces, names, moments all jumbled together. Who could their mother be? What had she told them to make them so sure? The weight of their words pressed down on him, and one thing was undeniable. This night was about to change everything. Michael's breath snagged in his throat. "They've seen my picture." His chest tightened like a vice, old memories bubbling up, jumbled and hazy. Faces, names, fleeting moments from years past. But nothing clicked. Who was their mother? What had she told these boys to make them so certain he was the villain? Curiosity burned too hot to ignore, and Michael couldn't just sit there drowning in questions. He stood, sucked in a shaky breath, and strode toward the boys' booth, his heart hammering like a drum. As he neared, the boys froze, their wide eyes snapping up to meet him. "Hey," Michael said, his voice soft. hands slipping into his pockets to seem harmless. I couldn't help but notice you two look kinda on edge. Everything okay? The boy in the hoodie sat up ramrod straight, his face hardening like stone. We're fine, he said, his tone sharp enough to cut. Michael nodded, brushing off the bite in the boy's voice. Good to hear. I just overheard you mentioning someone who might be here. You looking for somebody? The boys traded a quick glance. The one in the cap squirmed, his fingers twitching nervously, while the hoodie kid squared his shoulders, all defiance. Why do you care? He shot back, his voice dripping with suspicion. Michael hesitated. How do I play this without tipping my hand? He chose his words like stepping through a minefield. Just thought I might help. If you're looking for someone, maybe I know them. The boy in the hoodie narrowed his eyes, studying Michael's face like a detective. Then, like a switch flipped, his expression changed. Hold up, he said, slow and deliberate. You look familiar. Michael's heart plummeted. Oh no. He forced a weak chuckle. Yeah, I get that a lot. Guess I've got one of those faces. No way. The boy insisted, his voice climbing. You're him. You're Michael Luciano. The second boy gasped, his face draining to a ghostly white. No kidding, is that really him? Michael felt the floor vanish beneath him. No point dodging it now. Yeah, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm Michael Luciano, but how do you know? The hoodie kid's green eyes blazed with fury. Because of what you did to our mom. Michael blinked, stunned. Your mom? I'm sorry. Don't play dumb. The boy snapped, cutting him off. Angela Carter. Ring up. The name slammed into Michael like a lightning bolt. Angela Carter. His mind reeled, flashing back to years ago. A fiery, talented sous chef, brimming with passion and big ideas, ready to conquer the culinary world. But then, out of nowhere, she'd quit, vanishing without a word. He hadn't thought of her in forever. Angela, he said, the name heavy, like it carried the weight of a forgotten sin. She worked here, right? The boy's jaw clenched tight. She didn't just work here. She poured her soul into this place. She helped you make it what it is. And what did you do? You stole from her, took her recipes, slapped your name on them, and made sure no one else would hire her. She told us everything. Michael's head spun, his thoughts a chaotic mess. That's not true, he said, his voice quaking. Why would she think that? Because it's the truth. The boy fired back, his words like bullets. You destroyed her life. You destroyed our lives. The quieter boy, hesitant and soft-spoken, finally piped up. She said, you were jealous of her, that you couldn't stand someone else stealing your spotlight. Michael felt like he'd been gut-punched. He racked his brain, digging through foggy memories of those early frantic days. Had he screwed up? Was he so obsessed with his own dream that he'd trampled hers without even noticing? I need to talk to your mom, Michael said at last, his voice steady but laced with urgency. If what she's saying is true, I need to hear it from her. Please, can I talk to her? The boys swapped a cautious look, suspicion crackling between them. Finally, the one in the hoodie spoke. She's not here now, but if you really want the truth, you'll have to come to us. Michael nodded, his heart sinking like a stone. I'll be there, he promised, the weight of it all pressing down on him. The rain had thickened into a relentless drizzle. By the time Michael pulled up to the rundown apartment complex the boys had pointed him to, the building was weathered, its paint peeling, sidewalks cracked, a far cry from the glitzy life he'd grown used to. Standing under the flickering porch light, guilt stabbed at him. If those boys were right, if Angela's life had crumbled because of him, he owed her more than a sorry. He owed her answers. The door creaked open, and Jacob, the older boy, stood there, his face a mask of weariness. You actually showed up, he said, surprise and distrust tangling in his voice. Michael nodded, resolute. I need to know what happened. Where's your mom? Jacob paused, then stepped aside. Living room. Michael's heart pounded as he stepped inside, the air thick with tension. The apartment was small but neat, a testament to a life scraped together with care. Family photos dotted the walls, and a faint floral scent hung in the air, soft but comforting. His gaze landed on the woman on the couch, her face half lit by the TV's glow. Angela Carter. Her vibrant auburn hair was now threaded with gray, her eyes heavy with exhaustion that hadn't been there back then. But it was her, the driven, brilliant woman who'd once lit up his kitchen like a star. Angela, Michael said, his voice barely a whisper, raw with emotion. She looked up,
her face flickering from shock to icy resentment. "Michael Luciano," she said, her tone sharp enough to slice. "Never thought I'd see you here." Michael took a step closer, his voice earnest, almost pleading. "Angela, I had no idea it was you. The boys told me what you said. What happened? Did I really hurt you that bad?" Angela's eyes narrowed, and she tossed the remote aside with a flick of her wrist. "You don't even remember, do you?" she said, her voice dripping with bitterness. "Of course not. People like you never do." "I'm not here to fight," Michael said, his voice cracking with desperation. "I swear, I don't recall doing anything to ruin your life. Please, Angela, tell me what I did." She leaned back, arms crossed tight over her chest, her glare unrelenting. "You want the quick version? Fine. You stole my work. All those dishes that put your restaurant on the map. Most of them were mine. I trusted you, Michael. I thought you were guiding me, lifting me up. But you were just using me." Michael's brow creased, confusion swirling. "Angela, that's not how I remember it. You were a key part of the team, but I never took your work and called it mine." "Oh really?" she snapped, her voice rising, sharp with pain. "Then why was your name plastered on every article about Luciano's Bistro? Why were my contributions invisible? And when I finally called you out, what did you do? You blacklisted me. No one would touch me after I left." Michael's stomach twisted into knots. "Blacklisted? Angela, I didn't. I'd never do that," he stammered. "You did," she shot back, her voice trembling with rage. "I applied to every top restaurant in the city, and every single time I was shut out. It was like my name was poison. I had to abandon the industry completely, and now I'm stuck here, scraping by on a job that's beneath me, all because of you." Michael's heart sank, heavy with dread. He hadn't known about any blacklisting, but that didn't mean it wasn't real. He thought back to those early days at the restaurant. Endless pressure, countless mistakes, and yeah, moments where his ambition blinded him. Had he crushed Angela's dreams in his race to the top? "I didn't know," he said, his voice low, raw with regret. "Angela, I swear, if I'd realized how my actions hurt you, I would have done something, anything." His words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of a past he couldn't undo, and the question lingered. Could he ever make this right? Angela's bitter laugh cut through the air like a knife. "Too late, Michael. The damage is done." The room went dead silent, her words hanging heavy, suffocate. Michael's eyes flicked to the boys lurking in the hallway, their faces a stormy mix of anger and confusion. What must they think of him? He turned back to Angela, his jaw set, determination flaring. "It's not too late," he said, his voice steady and fierce. "I can't rewrite the past, but I can damn well try to make it right. Angela, you're an incredible chef. Always were. If you're willing, I want you back at Luciano's Bistro, in a senior role, with all the credit and recognition you deserve." Angela's eyes widened, a flash of vulnerability breaking through her armor. Was he serious? But then her face hardened again, her voice trembling with raw emotion. "You think you can just toss me a job and buy my forgiveness?" Michael shook his head, his tone earnest, almost pleading. "No way, Angela. This isn't about buying anything. It's about giving you the chance you should have had from the start. I can't undo what happened, but I want to see you back where you belong, doing what you love. You don't have to forgive me. Just please, think about it." Angela stared at him, her face a battlefield of emotions. Doubt, anger, maybe even a flicker of hope. Finally, she let out a heavy sigh, her shoulders slumping. "I don't know, Michael. Can I even trust you?" "You don't have to decide now," Michael said, his voice soft but firm. "Take all the time you need, but I need you to know, I'm sorry, truly sorry." For the first time, Angela's icy expression thawed, just a fraction. "I'll think about it," she murmured, barely audible. Michael nodded, a tiny spark of hope igniting in his chest. As he turned to leave, Jacob's voice stopped him cold. "Hey," the boy called, his tone less sharp, almost curious. "You really mean it? You're gonna help her?" Michael met Jacob's gaze, his sincerity unshakable. "I do, Jacob. Your mom deserves that, and so much more." Jacob studied him, his eyes searching, then gave a small nod. "Okay, we'll see." Stepping back into the chilly rain, Michael felt a whirlwind of emotions, guilt gnawing at him, relief washing over him, and a burning sense of purpose. The path to redemption was gonna be rough, but he was ready to walk it, no matter what. The days that followed were a blur. The encounter with Angela and her boys shaking him to his core. It wasn't just guilt. It was responsibility. He'd built his empire on the sweat of others. And while he never meant to hurt anyone, his relentless ambition had left scars. Now, he was hell-bent on making it right. Holed up in his office at Luciano's bistro, Michael stared at the frantic notes he'd jotted down after meeting Angela. He couldn't erase the past, but he could build a better future for her, her sons, and himself. He grabbed his phone and dialed an old industry buddy. "David," he said, leaning back in his chair, "I need a favor. You remember Angela Carter?" Angela. David's voice lit up with surprise. "Hell yeah. She was one of the most talented chefs I ever saw. What happened to her?" Michael hesitated, the truth bitter on his tongue. I screwed up, and she paid the price. I need to fix." David listened quietly as Michael spilled the story. "Well," David said at last, "if you're serious, you gotta get her name out there. The industry needs to know what she's capable of." Michael nodded, a plan forming. "That's exactly what I'm thinking. Thanks, David." Hanging up, Michael sprang into action, his resolve like steel. He fired off emails to food critics, local reporters, and industry bigwigs, shouting Angela's contributions to Luciano's bistro from the rooftops and hyping her unmatched skill. At the same time, he carved out a new role for her at the restaurant, a co-head chef gig with total creative control. This was her shot to shine. A week later, Angela stepped through the doors of Luciano's bistro for the first time in years, her posture stiff, like she was walking into a lion's den. The staff didn't roll out a red carpet, but their quiet respect spoke volume. They'd heard her story from Michael, and their eyes held awe, sensing the weight of her return. Michael met her at the door, his face open and earnest. "You came," he said, relief flooding his voice. Angela gave a curt nod. "Almost didn't, Jacob and Ethan. They pushed me to hear you out." Michael cracked a smile. "Smart kids. You raised them right." Angela's expression softened, just a touch. "They're good boys. They want me happy, even if I'm not sure I can trust you yet." "I get it," Michael said, his voice steady. "I don't expect your trust overnight, but I hope you'll give me a chance to prove I mean this." He led her to the kitchen, laying out his offer: co-head chef, full creative freedom, and a public nod to her role in making Luciano's what it was. He even slid over a draft press release for the local media. Angela read it slowly, her face unreadable, but when she looked up, her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "I never thought I'd hear you say this," she admitted, her voice thick. "It's a lot to process." "I know," Michael said gently. "Take your time. But no matter what, I regret how things went down deeply." Angela stayed quiet, the moment stretching taut. Then, to his shock, she extended her hand. "Let's try this." She extended her hand. "Let's try this," she said. Michael shook it, a wave of relief crashing over him. "I won't let you down," he vowed. Angela's return to Luciano's wasn't all smooth sailing. Trust didn't rebuild in a day, and old wounds lingered like ghosts. But as weeks passed, the ice between them began to thaw. They dove into creating new dishes, her bold, fiery ideas meshing with his polished technique. The restaurant soared, earning raves for its cutting-edge menu and the dynamic duo leading the charge. One busy evening, Michael slipped into the kitchen and caught Angela by the stove, a rare smile dancing on her lips. "What's so funny?" he asked, intrigued. She glanced at him, her grin widening. "Just thinking, can you believe this? A month ago, I'd have laughed if you said I'd be back here, cooking with you." Michael chuckled, warmth spreading through him. "Honestly, me neither. But you being here, it makes this place whole." Angela nodded, her eyes thoughtful. "It's not perfect, but it's a start." As weeks turned to months, Michael saw Luciano's in a new light. Not just a business, but a community. A place where people wove something bigger than themselves. Angela's return hammered home the need to honor everyone who built it. Jacob and Ethan started hanging out at the restaurant, their weariness melting into curiosity, then pride. They watched their mom thrive, her spark reigniting with every dish. One evening, as they sat near the kitchen, Michael strolled over, grinning. "You know, your mom's one of the best chefs I've ever worked with. You gotta be proud." Jacob met his eyes, serious but softer. "We are," he said, then paused. "And maybe we misjudged you a bit." Michael laughed, ruffling Jacob's hair. I'll take it. For the first time in years, peace settled over Michael. He couldn't erase his mistakes, but redemption wasn't about being flawless. It was about showing up, learning. As he watched Angela and her sons laughing together in the restaurant that once held so much pain, he knew the journey was just beginning. And he was all